All right. Hello and welcome back to the Avoiding Average podcast. My name is Susan Gates, your host, and today we have another astrocartography review. I'm super excited because I have Rebecca Jones here with me today, and she has graciously volunteered to allow us to look at her chart and where she's been, talk about some of the experiences that she has. So Rebecca, thank you so much for being here today with me.
My pleasure, Susan. Thank you for the invitation. I'm a very willing guinea pig.
Yes, I love that. I love the enthusiasm that a lot of people have had for this, just because it's relatively new, I guess, in the whole scheme of astrology. Speaking of which, though, I would love to get your background. Like, what familiarity do you have with astrology going into this?
Yes. So I would say I have a fairly good baseline knowledge of astrology. So where does that come from? That comes from taking courses on astrology. So
Okay.
a beginner's introduction course. I'm also a tarot reader. And so I've done
Nice.
a number of courses on the correspondences of astrology and tarot. And
Mhm.
I have made my birth chart, my big three, part of my personality. So I am a Libra Sun, Libra Rising, Gemini Moon. But
Nice.
other than that, I have to admit that I don't have substantial depth. So I'm a very willing and curious student.
Okay. Awesome. That's good to know. I mean, I love that you at least know your big three and also are embracing that as well. I think. Um, I mean, when I first started getting into the astrology world, I was like, I didn't even know that there was anything more than your sun sign, and even just the moon sign was like mind blowing to me. So
Yeah.
I love
Yes.
that. Awesome. Okay, so got a whole lot of air to work with, which is awesome. So we're gonna go ahead and dive into your birth chart first, and
Ooh.
uh, basically see what else is there, and talk a little bit about some of the themes that are part of essentially you, like you in essence.
Mhm.
So let me go ahead and pull this up. And,
Very exciting.
uh, okay.
Oh,
All right.
yes. I can see your screen. Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so this is the astrocartography of the United States for you,
Yes.
based on your birth
Okay.
chart. So, first of all, almost the first thing that I kind of immediately notice is the fact that you have a lot going on over here on the left hand side of your
Mm.
chart. And so, usually, what that indicates is, in essence, you are the type of person to kind of lead life by your own will, in a sense. Like, you will kind
Mm.
of take charge and go out there and live the life that you want. Whereas if everything was kind of on this side of the world, it's you be a little bit more reactive to your environment. You be allowing the external circumstances to kind of guide you in a sense.
Hmm.
So a little bit more self motivated, we'll say.
Yes.
Um, it also probably helps that you have that Libra rising, which is a cardinal sign. It's very much let's start things, let's go ahead and get
Hmm.
things done. You have your sun there, and so it's interesting to me because, and I'm not sure like if you've ever explored the differences between the Placidus and the whole sign houses. Um,
No.
okay, so there's like this concept of different house systems, and the way that it's showing up right now is Placidus, and that is based off of the angles. And so you have your ascendant here between the 12th and first house. You have your IC here between your third and fourth, and then you have your descendant sitting here between your sixth and seventh, and your midheaven between the ninth and 10th. And those angles are important because that's essentially what we're going to look at these different planetary lines on astrocartography. Because the idea is these are very sensitive points in our chart. And so when you have a planet conjunct any of these lines, it's going to play a major theme in your life.
Oh.
So whole sign takes wherever your ascendant is, that becomes your first house. So right now, the majority of Libra sits in your 12th house in Placidus, but in whole sign, this would be your first house. And it basically shifts everything else to align with that. So every sign becomes one full house.
Hmm.
Um, so your second house would become Scorpio instead of mostly Sagittarius and so on. And so I kind of like to look at things both ways, just because I do think that there is some truth to both of them.
Sure.
And we can also take a look at that too as we're talking about some of the themes that come up in your birth chart as well. Sound good?
Sounds cool. That sounds
Okay.
amazing.
Okay.
Because if I may, I understand, I know the words and I understand that I have a stellium in Scorpio, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
actually know what that means.
Yes. Yes. So That's great. So you actually have, let's see, two stelliums if we're looking at just the planets. So first stellium is actually in Libra. So
Hmm.
besides the fact that you have your sun there and your rising there, you also have Pluto and you have Mercury. And so a stellium is when you have at least three planets in the same sign.
Hmm.
And so what that does is essentially it concentrates that sign's energy in your chart, and that tends to be a bigger theme in your life, or
Okay.
those attributes, that archetype. And so Libra is very much all about balance. It's represented by the scales, right? And so
Hmm.
there's this great need to be fair, to have justice in a sense, and I imagine, especially with Pluto there, that's like kind of a bigger theme. It's like the power struggles may be something that you may be a little bit more sensitive to in a sense,
Hmm.
and not that you're looking for power, but more of, okay, what is actually fair.
Right.
um, and then you also have Mercury there. So Mercury is considered a personal planet, and so it holds a little bit more weight than I think Pluto does, just because that is a generational planet. And so not everybody your age has Mercury in Libra.
Okay.
And so for you, the way that you communicate tends to be perhaps a little bit more fair, a little bit more thoughtful. Libra tends to like looking at things at both sides of the spectrum. I think you having both Libra and Gemini prominent placements in your chart,
Hmm.
the duality of things is something important to you, or something that you tend to consider a lot.
Hmm.
And please correct me if I'm wrong or
It's
anything
true.
like that.
It's true. Yeah, I
Okay.
really love to explore both sides and make sure that, yeah, that there's fairness and representation, but also I like to explore ideas. And so
Hmm.
I rarely take anything at face value. I really want to understand what's on this side, what's on the other side.
Hmm.
How can I look at it from different perspectives?
Yeah, yeah, and that is very much. I don't know. I feel like the lines kind of get blurred for me too, because I have a Gemini sun, and then I also have a Libra midheaven, and so I'm like,
Okay. We
I
understand
get
one
a lot of,
another.
yeah,
We
yeah,
understand one another,
basically.
yes.
Yeah. Um, and I guess the other thing that I'll mention too is because you do have this Libra, mostly in your 12th house. Um, uh, some of the shadow sides of Libra tend to be like people pleasing, or it
Hmm.
can be
For
like not
sure.
using your voice enough, um, and really taking a stand for what it is you believe in. And so it's that constant. It's almost that need of like, okay, I don't really want to be wrong, or there are so many different facets to this conversation. I don't really want to take a stand for anything in a sense. Um,
Yes.
and I imagine that was probably something that you had dealt with more when you were younger, but probably as you've gotten older, it's something that you've maybe gotten a little bit more comfortable with.
Yes, for sure. If I may share,
Hmm.
certainly it took me some amount of time to find my quote unquote voice,
Hmm.
because I actually, as much as I'm fair and like to explore ideas, I do feel quite confident when I come to, have my opinions. But it
Hmm.
has taken me some amount of time to express and vocalize those opinions, particularly in social settings, public settings, or at work.
Hmm.
My family of origin grew up in a very religious household where
Okay.
personal expression wasn't necessarily prioritized.
Mm.
So that reinforced, I think, some of the themes that you were bringing forward here around, wanting to do the people pleasing and also not, you don't want to make any kind of waves. You needed to be a bit more conformist than
Hmm.
expressing those things. So um,
Yeah.
I can definitely resonate with all of that.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
It it's interesting too, like when you say that your family of origin had very religious roots in a sense, and that kind of
Hmm.
limited your ability to speak out and have those opinions. I think there's
Yes.
um, you have, so ninth house often relates to religion.
Hmm.
It says here its cusp is there in Gemini, and your moon is in Gemini,
Hmm.
um, in Jupiter as well. Jupiter is often related to Sagittarius, which is also related to religion. But they're sitting in your eighth house. Your eighth house, it can often relate to like a lot of shadow aspects, and so having that sitting there, I imagine, plus they're trining your Mercury, and then it's also trining your Pluto, sitting in your 12th house. And so it's like these kind of things feel like they very much did sit in the background in a sense
Hmm.
until you
Yes.
kind of brought light to it, and then you're like, okay, let's
Yeah.
start talking about this.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's like a lot of these 12th house placements can be tricky to work with. I imagine I'm actually curious, like, what was your relationship like with your father?
He's also a Libra Sun.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
it's funny because um, it was a challenging relationship in terms of he was, he's a man of his faith and
Mm,
felt it was important to impart and reinforce the religious aspects. And we would, unfortunately, our personalities are similar in some ways, so we would
mhm,
sometimes butt heads. But in general,
mhm,
because I use language and knowing how to express myself and kind of navigate it, I was able to avoid confrontation.
mhm,
Certainly, there were some difficult aspects to our relationship, but the thing is, because our minds both work similarly and quickly,
mhm.
that sort of seemed to help somehow. Does that make sense? I'm curious why you're asking. Maybe I
Yeah,
can answer more specifically.
yeah. Well, so I guess it's like, I mean, having your son in your 12th house, the sun sometimes represents the father, and so I think, and particularly a relationship with your father, and sitting in the 12th house of things that are kind of unseen, um,
Hmm.
sometimes can relate to, like the father not really being present or there.
Hmm.
Um, and so I guess that was part of the reason why I was curious.
I mean, it's all really fascinating, right?
It
Yeah.
is, and I think the interesting thing is that all these different placements can be interpreted different ways, right? They can mean different
Yes.
things depending on the person,
Hmm.
and so that's part of the reason why I kind of wanted to do this too. Is like see how things have shown up for different people in different ways
Yeah,
as well,
of course. I
particularly
mean,
when it comes to astrocartography.
yeah, for sure. No, I'm an open book, so ask away.
Okay, awesome. Um, so one of the things that drew my eye initially was that when, remember how we had talked about, when there's a planet on an angle, that tends to be a very prominent theme in your life. You have Chiron sitting here, it's loosely conjunct your descendant here. And so what
What do those
that
words mean?
fair, we're um so what that means to me is that there is some wounding around relationships with other people in
Hmm.
Taurus is like the stable energy. And so it's like having stable relationships, having people there that were there for you, literally like had your
Hmm.
back, and perhaps not being able to trust other people.
Hmm.
Does that
Yeah,
feel
yeah, I can definitely take that. I mean, as much as I'm an open book, I won't reveal everything, but I
yeah.
would say that there were things that happened with my mother's health and also with my father's work, and both of those meant that they were absent for some period of time, meaning they were physically present,
Mm-hmm.
but because of whatever circumstance, they were sort of detached. Yeah, and so
Mm-hmm.
there were a lot of times when I was just left to my own devices, or I felt like I um yeah, had to just, figure things out by myself at a very young age. So I think nowadays we have that understanding. We talk about it like being a parentified child.
Yeah.
I think it was also a little bit of, my generations. We were a little bit more free range than
Mm-hmm.
than children are now.
Yeah.
But I definitely have felt that like the only person I can really trust truly and depend upon is myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that a lot. I actually do have a very similar placement, not in the same sign, but Chiron right there on the descendant. So
Yeah.
I get that, and it's
Yeah.
a little bit of a challenge to get around sometimes, especially when you're
Yeah.
trying to form close bonds with other people.
That's right. And if I may,
Hmm.
I wonder, thinking about it through the lens of my childlike mind coming to those, conclusions at
Hmm.
those times, given the circumstances with my mother and my father, um, and also knowing that there was this kind of um, not tension, difficulty with the expression. I just wondered if I had spoken up, maybe
Mm.
those needs would have been met a bit more. I don't know.
Mm. Yeah,
That maybe as a child I
possible.
didn't realize. Yeah, I don't know. This is why we could go down so many rabbit holes. Sorry,
Yeah.
Susan, I didn't mean to derail
No,
us.
no, no, no. It's totally fine. It's interesting to think about too. And normally, like what I would do is like look at okay, what aspects is it actually making? And there's no major aspects. I mean, it does make an aspect to your natal Mercury, which relates to communication, and and so it's like it that could have had an influence. It's not a major aspect, but it does still have an influence because they are kind of connecting energies in that sense. And I know you
Hmm.
can't see the line here, but that's
Yeah.
kind of what's going on. What's interesting though is this Chiron and North Node or South Node, sorry, they do make a trine over here into Ceres. Ceres is a dwarf planet that relates to how we nurture ourselves. And so
Hmm.
sitting here in your 11th house, I wonder like did you end up because of the lack of like maybe your parents being there for you, did you basically try to find uh, support through your own community or the other friendships around you?
Yeah, I think so. I've always been fortunate to have good friend groups around
Mm-hmm.
me. I would say that this was particularly true as I got into my 20s and started
Okay.
to, I think we use terms like our chosen family, things like
Mm.
this, right?
Mm-hmm.
A collection of different friends to provide those supports that we need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's fair. Um, okay. Because so going back to the whole sign versus Placidus, 11th house typically relates to um, your communities, your friendships, your um, uh, even like humanitarian efforts in a sense. And I don't
Hmm.
know if you've kind of dove into that at all as far as like helping others or doing community work, but that almost feels like that's something that is could be
Hmm.
very nurturing for you
Sure. Thank
and very
you.
comforting. Um, so let me see. And I think also probably because it does make the sextile into Uranus, which Uranus is it's about like radical change in a sense, and it can also be a little bit unpredictable too. So
Ooh, I like that about myself.
yeah, well, so it's interesting. You have this little cluster right here in your first house in Scorpio. Mars, which is actually the traditional ruler of Scorpio, so it's strengthened there. Your North Node and Uranus there. And Uranus is considered like the higher octave of Mercury. And your North Node is like the path that you're set on in this lifetime, what you're kind of working to evolve into, and almost like your soul's mission in a sense, I guess. I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, and this always opposes a south node, which is where you've been, what your comfort zone is, and and like the basically the gifts that you can take to move you forward in this life.
Hmm.
Um, and so, what this feels like here, sitting in your first house with Scorpio, is essentially finding your own power, finding your own strength and words and courage to basically take a stand for yourself, which is difficult with that
Yes,
Libra, right?
it
Um,
is.
and so these two energies, they don't really play
Hmm.
that well together, I guess. But what's also fascinating too is there's this concept of mutual reception, where it's the ruling sign of the planet or of the ruling planet of the sign is in another house and vice versa. And so Scorpio modern ruler is Pluto. Libra's ruler is Venus. And so they're in each other's houses, which kind of strengthened them in a sense. And so
Mm.
it's like this mishmash of energy of, taking into consideration others, but then also finding your own strength and own power too.
Yeah. Yes.
Um,
And that's certainly, if I may, that's certainly what I've
mhm,
done so far. And I mean, I'm still finding my way, right? But
mhm,
the, sneak preview, I eventually rejected my, religion of family origin.
Okay.
I went through a traditional career path through financial services, etc. And
Hmm.
now I have work. I still have a 9 to 5, but I'm, delving into that other aspect of myself and being more delving into the other aspect of myself and being as a psychic medium, as a tarot reader, with the unseen, the
Hmm.
mysteries, the underworld.
Nice. Oh, I love that for you.
Mm.
Because I was gonna ask. I was like, I know nothing
Yeah,
about you. I don't know like what you
that's
do, but
fine.
part of me
Yeah,
was like,
ask
I kind
away.
of hope that she does something more in the spiritual realm, which I assumed you did if you're telling me.
Yes.
But
Yeah. No, yeah. And if we have time, I'm happy to go into my spiritual awakening and how those events sort of happen. But it's
okay,
been a long trajectory, but I'm
yeah,
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So this is
okay,
making a
awesome.
lot of sense to me. So thank you so much, Susan. This is
Yeah,
amazing.
of course, of course. And honestly, that's what I love about astrology. I feel like it confirms a lot of things that we've kind of felt intuitively, and just having
Yes.
it kind of explained in a different way is helpful.
Yes.
And kind of speaking of, you mentioned something funny, and the first thing I saw was your Saturn in your 10th house
Uh-huh.
of the long trajectory to getting there. So you have your 10th house relates to your career and your legacy. It's
Hmm.
the things that you work hard to get to in life. And um, Saturn is the planet that rules time, restrictions, delays, working hard, discipline, those very mature themes, we'll call them.
Hmm.
And it doesn't really like Leo. We'll say that it's not its happy place, and so it can almost feel like anywhere that Saturn is tends to be an area of life that we tend to evolve a little bit more slowly. It takes more
Hmm.
time, it takes more effort to get to that point. And having your midheaven in Leo typically indicates somebody who's meant to stand out a little bit more, somebody who's meant to um, be seen by others.
Hmm.
And midheaven's all about being seen by the public, and so it's having your Saturn there is like, okay, we're going to take this one step at a time and go a little bit slowly, but we're going to build something that lasts, something
Yeah.
that's sustainable, something that is worth the effort in a sense, because you're just building on top of everything that kind of comes
Yeah.
your way.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's no surprise to me, I guess, that you say that it's taken a little while to get there, but I also do love that you are getting into more of the mystical world. Like you have
Yes.
your sun there in the 12th house, you have Pluto there, you have Mercury there, and so that communication. You said you're a psychic medium, right?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And yes.
That feels very on point for what your chart says, and so yeah, I think that's wonderful.
Good.
Um,
Me too. Thank you.
of course. Um, and the other thing too, like you have little old Neptune sitting over here by itself, but
Oh,
it's Neptune. I mean, it's related to spirituality, right? And so you have these. It's trining your Saturn in your 10th house. Your second house relates to your values. It relates to your money, your possessions, and those sort of things. And Sagittarius is one of the more spiritual signs. We'll say they are the truth seekers. They are the ones that are searching for greater meaning. And wherever I see Neptune, I tend to attribute that to like how you kind of bring in like greater universal insights, the
mm.
channeling in a sense too. And so,
Yes. That's something I've
um,
been starting this year, actually.
nice. Okay. Um, and so it's like I do wonder, like as you kind of delve deeper into this, um, if you're really able to lean into that, into kind of helping that guide you in terms of, you know, how you make your money, but also like what is of value to you, and how do you um, really allow yourself to show up in your own full power. There's this interesting aspect here. It's like a mini trine where you have Neptune sextiling your Pluto, sextiling your Saturn, which trines back here. And those are all very supportive energies. And so it's
Oh, that's
like,
good.
yeah, yeah. So the more that you can kind of stand in your own personal power and allow yourself to be, I don't know, very open to just the themes of Libra, where it's like, which I mean, I think you're already kind of doing with. I mean, it helps having your sun and your rising there because they're very familiar energies, right? But also
Mm,
finding the strength in that too. Um,
yeah.
Libra, I mean, sometimes kind of gets a bad rep, but like there's also so much value there in terms
Thank
of
you.
like I genuinely do believe this. I mean, it's like they when you think of like what's fair, what's just, what's right, what's helpful for other people, that is that is a gift for
Mm,
others. And what are you doing with this channeling? You're helping other people, right?
yeah.
And so, um, trying to find that strength in that um,
Yeah.
feels like it will be supportive in
Thank
those
you.
energies.
Yes. I think that I'm a helper by nature,
Mm-hmm,
and I do get deeply offended when things are unjust.
mm-hmm,
And, there's often times a struggle with my having to accept how things just are.
mm-hmm.
And even though I feel myself saying, but it shouldn't be this way, or that's not fair, or whatever,
Yeah,
and coming around to the realization that a lot of life's lessons is just, you know, uh, how much resistance are we going to give to what is. So even things like this, but with my spiritual evolvement and my being a tarot reader, psychic medium, evidential medium, and now the extension into channeling, I'm hoping to help people in some way there. It's also the
yeah,
case I'm very sensitive to things like what's happening in Gaza and
mm,
Congo and Sudan, and sometimes I'm just completely overwhelmed by it. It's
yeah,
just too much injustice.
yeah, yeah. It's uh, it it's interesting. Like there is a lot going on, right? There's
Mm.
and
Well, and
it
in the
can be
United
incredibly
States.
challenging. Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
let's just
anywhere you
say.
look, really.
Yeah, everything's on fire. Let's be honest. Everything's a trash bag right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you can look to anywhere in the world and find despair, find heartache, find
True. That's
horrible issues
true.
going on. And everywhere you can also find love. You can find peace. You can find the beauty of the everyday too, in a sense. And so, I think in when you have like some of these very conflicting kind of energies going on here, where you know Libra and Taurus really love this love and peace and harmony and those sort of themes. But then Scorpio is very like in the dark and just like going deep into the depths of the struggles of humanity in a sense sometimes too,
Yeah.
where it can be really challenging. Um, and and so I guess like what I would what kind of comes up for me is like how can you use your own voice to help others in a way that is maybe not like you know grand scale like it feels like you do care deeply about the collective,
Hmm.
but your greatest impact may be in just personal relationships in
Ooh,
as
that
opposed
gives me a
to
chill. Yeah, I think that's a big one.
okay, yeah, it can be really hard sometimes when you see everything that's going on in the world and you want to help others. You have your IC sitting in Aquarius, which is very much that sign is very much concerned about the collective. They're the ones that are kind of helping to shift the world in better
Yeah.
directions and stuff. Um, but that's also not always. It can feel like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders in a sense sometimes,
True.
but it's also not necessarily everybody's responsibility to take on that role of changing the entire collective. I don't
Yes.
know that that's reasonable for most people. Um, it's how can you basically use that care, that love, that passion that you have for others, and maybe shift it like on a one-on-one basis and the people that you interact with on a daily basis, mm, as opposed to making like radical changes.
Yeah, that really resonates. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. I think you have this gift here of this first house stellium of, this is you as you show up. You are very powerful presence with all that here. Um, and so it's like, how can you show up in the world and maybe in your interactions with other people? Libra is, it traditionally rules the seventh house, which is like your one-on-one relationships.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's like, how can you do that on a more daily basis? You also have Black Moon Lilith here in your seventh house. Black Moon Lilith, it often relates to like the dark feminine is the best way to
Hmm.
describe it, where
Hmm.
it is, it can sometimes be things that maybe we're shamed for or whatever. But the more that we stand in that power, in a sense, the more that we're able to utilize those gifts of um, really reaching into that feminine and finding our strength. Um, and now it does oppose your Venus in your first house in Scorpio. And so it's like almost like this. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. I have there been like power struggles in some of the relationships that you've had in the past?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I would imagine it, I mean, it probably has something to do with Chiron as well, but like having this opposition here, Venus is really ruled by Taurus, or the other way around, sorry. Um, but it feels like, where can you find the balance between these two energies of maybe standing
Hmm.
up for yourself in relationships, using your own voice in when you interact with others, and being maybe assertive when you need to, but without falling into some of the Scorpio shadow traits of being kind of stubborn. I mean, well, Taurus can also be stubborn, but
Yeah. No, that's
the
fair.
the Scorpio tends to be very reactive, especially when they feel like they're being attacked.
Mm.
Um, and so, where can you find your own like own personal value and feel really solid in that, so that
Yeah.
it doesn't lead to conflict?
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah,
um,
that's fair. There's one of my friends puts it in a good ways because she's saying like you are so friendly and amenable and social and all of these things, but once you've decided something like and you're done, like it's done. Like you're immovable from that point. So but we're saying it, in a good humored way, just saying like
mhm.
in the best and worst ways of
Yeah,
in the best and worst sense, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it can go both ways, right? Okay. I think we covered. Oh, Gemini Moon. I think we briefly talked about that. Um, Gemini moons can be a little tricky sometimes because all the air sign moons tend to intellectualize their emotions a lot of the times.
True. This is true.
um, it's a challenge with Gemini. Their minds are constantly going and
Hmm.
wondering and thinking and analyzing, and so I think the biggest hurdle with that is just allowing yourself to really feel into your emotions. And I imagine that sitting in your eighth house is probably something that you've worked on in a sense, I guess,
It's a work
and
in
maybe
progress.
reconnecting. Yeah, yeah.
It's a work in progress. I would say as well that I spend so much time in my mind, but also connecting with, in my auric in the auric fields that sometimes I have to remind myself, oh, I'm in a body. Oh, I need to
Hmm.
check in with my body. How am I feeling? How does that
Hmm.
feel in my body? How does that feel
Hmm.
as, in my feelings?
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely, yep. Tick.
Yeah.
Gold star.
Well, what's interesting too is that you don't have a ton of stuff in the earth signs,
No.
which would basically like indicate like this not inability but more difficulty maybe staying grounded and maybe staying present in the moment. And so
Oh yes,
um
I'm always in the next somewhere else somewhere. Yeah, I really have to be mindful about staying present.
yes, I feel that. um
Mm.
and so I guess my challenge to you then would be that like, because that is a challenge for you, and you might be stuck in your head sometimes, or just in hanging out in the spirit world, or whatever, where
Yes.
um, uh, you could try a few different things, like in terms of being present with other people. You have your south node there in Taurus in the seventh house, and so I imagine it's probably pretty easy for you to um, be more present when it comes to when you're hanging out with somebody one on one or having conversation.
Yes. This is my favorite.
Yeah. Um, and then also just having that Ceres there sitting in the 11th house in Virgo, um, it feels like, you know, the way that you can stay a little bit more grounded is by working with other people and being in a community, or even like I had mentioned before, that community service type thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I think those sort of things would probably help you just kind of come back to earth a little bit too.
Yes. Yes. I agree.
Okay. Awesome. So that's like your birth chart. And it just gives a better understanding of, the connections between the different planets that you have going on. Because what happens in astrocartography is you are essentially just shifting your entire chart. It just rotates.
Mhm.
None of the signs change um, none of the planets change signs or the degrees. And so all these aspects are still happening. So even if, say, you were to move to a Venus line, you would still be activating that Black Moon Lilith. Or if you move to a Jupiter line, you'd still be activating the Ceres, and you'd be activating your Mercury. And so it's just something to consider. And we'll take a look at
Hmm.
your relocated charts as well, just to see which areas of life are highlighted a little bit more
Ooh,
where
exciting.
you live. Yeah. Okay. Do you have any
Okay.
questions?
No, I'm going to be digesting this for a while. It's
Okay.
fascinating. Thank you. It's so
Yes, of
insightful. It
course.
really gives me a lot. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Okay, so let's take a look. I know you had mentioned that you were born in Sacramento, which is
That's
somewhere
right.
around here, I think. I know I can't
Yes.
find that exact location, but where exactly is Reading? Oh, I just passed
Yep.
it.
There you
There
go.
it is.
Yep.
Okay. So not a lot different going on. It does have that descendant on Chiron, but that's always going to kind of play a role in your life. Your birth chart is your birth chart. That's going to be kind of the primary thing that the lens that you're experiencing life in a sense,
Yeah.
and the overarching themes. But um, let's see real quick. Nope, that's too far. Okay. There are all these horizontal lines that I wanted to check. They're called parents. And what that is essentially a crossing point of two different planetary energies. And so they
Hmm.
may be on the other side of the world, but that extends all the way around the world at the same latitude.
Right.
And it has a range of about 75 miles. 60 to 75, I think, is the normal range. And you'll be able to feel that influence there. So
Right.
Sacramento, Reading, not too much going on there.
Hmm.
Um, you had said that you moved to New York
That's
for a
right.
little while too, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And
So after university, I moved to New York City and I lived and worked there for, I think around 9 years, 8 to 9 years. Yeah.
okay, nice. Um, the first thing that sticks out is you have this moon descendant line nearby, all by the East Coast. So no matter where you would have gone, it would have felt that. Um, excuse me. And so what that does is essentially your your emotional life, the way that you feel emotionally comforted and nurtured, becomes very prominent when it comes to relationships with other people. And so I don't know if you had any significant relationships while you were there. Um,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I formed some really deep and beautiful life-lasting friendships there.
mhm.
And I've had two I hope they're not listening. Two or three quite significant romantic relationships there, and some of them were good and some of them were not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they were both
Gemini.
significant. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so here is what your relocated chart looks like. And so you see there's also the Jupiter line there, which is nearby as well. And so it Jupiter expands anything that it touches in a sense. And it's kind of hindered a little bit in Gemini. It's not as as expansive as it would be in Sagittarius, which is its
Mhm.
natural ruler or what it rules. And so but it still kind of brings more of an emphasis in that area of life. Having it sitting retrograde too, I imagine. I don't know if there's more time for you to reflect on some of the things in themes of like the themes related to romantic relationships or how you
Mhm.
interact with other people.
Yes.
Um, okay.
Yeah, lots of lessons learned. Lots of lessons learned. I often say I lived 3 lifetimes when I lived there
Oh
because
wow.
I was able to pack a lot of life into an experience there.
Yeah, I bet. I think anytime you move to an angular um, or where one of the planetary lines aligns with your angles, it's going to hold something significant for you in that regard or that theme or that
Mhm.
area of life, I should say. And so uh, it's funny that you say that you did build a lot of prominent friendships and relationships there. And so
Mhm.
when we look at your 11th house, it actually sits right here. You've got your North Node sitting there in your 11th house. You have Mars, and you pursuing these friendships and building that community was probably pretty. There's probably a pretty strong internal drive to do that. And maybe even like some of the people that you met were a little bit more different than you would hang out with in normally or
Yes,
interact with.
yes, because if I may add,
Mhm.
my moving to New York also was the time of my officially leaving my religious upbringing and
Mm,
community. And so the friends that I met were kind of my first post religious. It was just a whole new world, right? So I was
yeah.
open and free to meet with lots of people from lots of different areas. And of course, New York is such a diverse place with
Mhm.
people from all over the world. So it was making significant friendships with people with much different backgrounds to my own, and it's been fascinating and wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that too because you became a Sagittarius rising there too. So the themes of Sagittarius of being a little bit more worldly and more expansive, wanting
Hmm.
to go out there and learn and grow,
Yes.
really
Yes,
big.
every day was an education for sure, for sure. But also it was a learning for me, like how do I fit in? How do I belong? How do I
Mhm.
express myself with people that are much different? I don't know how to, I spent the X number of years kind of used to a very specific container
Mhm.
and expected norms of expression. And
Mhm.
then, now I'm left to my own devices. What does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder too, having like Neptune there in your first house, Neptune can kind of distort the way that we see things in a sense.
Mm.
And so the way that maybe you saw yourself was, have you ever gotten any comments, I guess, from other people, maybe based on like what you said about yourself and other friends being like, what are you talking about?
Let me think. Yeah, maybe. I'm trying to think.
It's okay if you did.
Yeah.
Just something to think about.
Sure. Thank you.
And let's see, what else is there? Okay, so there's more that kind of happens here in your 10th house and in your fifth house, as well as your sixth house, I guess. Um, so we'll start with your 10th house. It is, the work, um, your legacy, the how your public image in a sense too. Um, and so your midheaven moves into Virgo, which is very, very organized, very diligent in a sense. It's they are like the data collectors. They
Mm-hmm.
are the ones
Mm-hmm.
that are analytical and have their shit together
Yes.
and that sort of thing. So, um,
Yeah.
is this when you went into the you said the financial field?
Yes. So I was working very Wall Street, financial services, very data intensive, working long hours. You had to
Hmm.
really be, bring your A game every single day, which makes
Hmm.
me want to vomit as I'm saying these words because they sound so, you know, so cringe.
Not aligned with
But
yeah.
but well, that was the thing, right? Is
Yeah.
I knew that rejecting my religion of origin, I needed to, I wanted to stand on my own 2 feet, be
Hmm.
independent, not rely on anyone else but myself,
Hmm.
which touches on all the themes that you've mentioned to date. And also, I do have those aspects of my personality. I can do it. Now, I'm
Hmm.
naturally a night owl by nature. I hate waking up early, but I was like, this is the job. This is what I'm doing. So I'm going to make it happen. So I made it happen.
Okay. Nice. Um, yeah. Very data oriented. Sounds
Hmm.
about right for that.
I love data. Yeah, I always want to go back to the source. Where does this
um,
come from? How did you learn that? Where does it say that? Are
yep.
you sure?
Well, having series there is probably data is
And I was
comforting to you.
it is very common. And this is, I spend way too much time data collecting on things.
Yep.
And I have to remind myself, like, move on. Like,
Mm.
there's just oversaturated. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, I'm curious if it's like because this actually squares your natal Neptune. It also squares your natal Moon too. Um, did it feel like having this career or being there maybe limited your ability to be creative in a sense? Um, because that's so data oriented, that doesn't really seem to align like with the Neptunian themes of creativity, and then also having your
So,
Chiron here in your fifth house.
yeah. So all of my spare time and all of my spare money went to one of two things, either taking art classes, so
Mm.
painting, drawing, photography, all of those things, or travel.
Mm, okay.
Yeah. So I tried to wedge in creativity where I could. And fast forward to where I am now, I was saying to someone even a few days ago, oh, I really think I probably should have gone into marketing because that would have been sort of the marriage of two things, right? Of the data
Hmm.
and that creative expression. But, hindsight is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. um, okay, that's interesting. So I love that you had that internal drive to go after more of like the creative projects and traveling.
Hmm.
It really does feel like it's highlighted here with um, you know Ceres being in your ninth house, which often is related to like international travel and
Mm.
expansion and those sort of things. And so, um, yeah, I don't know.
It's almost like
You
the
said you worked
astrology is a
long hours
thing.
though, right? Yeah,
Yeah, I
right.
did. I did.
Okay. So your
I did.
ability to do that maybe have hindered a little bit, but you were still able to do that, which is good. I'm glad
Yes.
that you were able
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
um, okay. Um, out of curiosity too, I'm curious if like a lot
Yeah.
of the stuff that you or the artwork or whatever it was that you had created,
Hmm.
um, did that tie back to maybe some of the emotional things that you're holding on to from your past?
No, I probably should do art therapy or should have. No, it was really exploration. So it
Okay.
didn't, yeah, it didn't have an anchor
Okay.
necessarily, but it was a
Okay.
good outlet for expression for sure.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Um, let's see what else happens over here. So your Venus moved into your 12th house. Um, and so I'm curious about like, what your relationship with love and um money kind of played out in your time there.
Yeah. So love, win some, lose some.
Hmm.
Um, definitely. I mean, do you have specific questions about it? I'm not sure what aspect you would like me to talk about.
Yeah, so like Venus is often the planet that we look at when it comes to love.
Hmm.
And that being in Scorpio, it's debilitated, but essentially it's kind of weakened sitting in Scorpio.
Hmm.
Um, and just because Scorpio is very, say, passionate, but a bit more on like
Yeah.
a deeper like control can be something that comes up often.
Yes.
Um, and and so like sitting in your 12th house, that's the house of things kind of unseen. It is perhaps a little bit harder to access, um,
Hmm.
and it may take a little bit more work to get to, in a sense. It's
I
not as
see.
readily flowing or
Sure.
uh, yeah. And then also like having that opposition with your Black Moon Lilith in your sixth house, which is, your work, your daily routines. It almost feels like, part of it is unable to access it because there is maybe a lot more emphasis in your daily life, in the
Hmm.
grind and getting things done and just um, making it day
Yeah.
to day.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I'm happy to tell you a tale of two love stories. So one was um, a relationship. I think he was a Capricorn sun,
Okay.
and it was a good relationship. But ultimately, he was about the routine and the daily life, and as much as I had that aspect for me in my 9 to 5, I
Mm-hmm.
definitely did not want that at home. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
a very different thing where he um, and so I think we had, as much as we enjoyed our time together, ultimately we just had different views on how we would spend our downtime.
Okay.
Um, I, so I don't know where that control issue, surfaced there, but I'm not sure it did. But the other one is, we have these. uh, I'm going to tell you about how I view that relationship now. It was a very important relationship. And this is actually someone who still resurfaces now, this many years later.
Oh, okay.
It was not a healthy relationship. I think people would romantically say something like, "Oh, the one that got away," or
Mm.
"You were meant to be, but not in this life." All this kind of, you know, corny nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were codependent. I think we had periods of jealousy and we wanted to control what the other were doing. And it was, when we were dating other people, we'd still find a way to have clandestine meetings, or we would, express how the two of us should be together. But then when we were together, it never quite worked. But at the same time, it was such an interesting union because I guess I'm not going to say what he did, but, we were able, there was a deep appreciation of love for all the worldly pleasures. So art,
Mm-hmm.
creativity, going out,
Mm-hmm.
travel. So, and it was very, passionate and sensual as well, but it
Mm-hmm.
also just was not healthy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yet somehow these many years later, we still find a way back to one another. And
Mm.
now I have more of a sense of humor, like get out of my DMs, like stop bothering me. But, it took a long time for me to get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. I think it's funny that the two examples that you had, of like, the more stable earth sign, the grounded, the day to
Hmm.
day, and then the other, which is, far more passionate, far more, I don't know. um,
Yes.
uh, and and it's funny because it's like there is that extreme there, right?
Hmm.
There's that part of you that was very stable, grounded, trying to work through the day to day and get things done and all that. With your midheaven being there in Virgo and your sixth house being in Taurus, and then also your second house being in Capricorn, which very much about having a second house in Capricorn is like very money motivated, very
Hmm.
focused on bringing in the bread or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
um, but having that Venus and Scorpio it is very passionate. It is very like sensual, and especially having a Mars and
Hmm.
Scorpio there too. Um, and so it's like this was like I imagine that first relationship that you mentioned that theme probably came up as like, wait, there's something missing. There's
Yes,
something there's
that's
something
right.
more that I need.
Yes.
And so yeah, And in Scorpio, it's like there's a fine line between, enjoying the passion both and then also taking it a step too far.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Lesson learned.
Yeah.
Lesson learned.
So finding the balance, I think, it was probably like one of the big things. I guess that came up for you there,
Hmm.
between the world and your inner, um, more personal needs.
Yes.
We'll say.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, interesting. All right. Anything here that you wanted to ask about before we move on? I know we're kind of running low on
No,
time, but
I'd love to jump ahead to London. I'm very
okay.
curious.
All right, let's do
Um,
that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna just highlight all of Europe. It'll be easier to find. Okay. So you are in London right now.
Hmm.
The closest line, you actually have a moon IC line. So I imagine that that is actually a very lovely place to be as far as just feeling at home in a sense.
Yes.
Okay.
I love it
Hmm.
here.
Okay. Moon IC lines. I think when people are looking for a place that feels like home, that's usually where I would say, assuming that there are no
Ooh,
like
gives me a chill.
awful,
Just a second chill. Yeah.
yeah, I shouldn't say awful, but like harder
No.
aspects.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so you also have the there with Jupiter as well, and then you also have this interesting little aspect here. So remember I was talking about the parents. Oops, sorry. I wanted to measure that. I think that
It's
should
okay.
be within range, but let me make sure. There's London. We're gonna scoot up. Oh yeah. Okay. So here's Neptune, Saturn, Perrin. Um, and so the combination of those energies are very interesting because it's like Neptune's can represent the heavens and Saturn can represent the earth in a sense. And so it's like the merging of those two energies. Um,
Hmm.
it can be challenging because it will often blur the lines between the two, but can also be very powerful. And so I wonder, like, since being in London, have you felt like you've had a greater ability to bring in the intuitive insights that you're getting and
Yes. Yes.
speaking
Yes.
it
1,000 times
figuratively?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My spiritual awakening happened here.
Amazing. Okay. I love that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that can be very supportive energy for what it is that you want to do. If
Hmm.
you're pursuing this path in mediumship or
Yeah.
channeling, can be supportive there. So let's take a
Yes.
look at your
Thank
chart.
you.
Holy moly, your eighth house. Okay. No wonder you had a spiritual awakening there. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So big shift here as far as how your entire chart looks.
Wow. I'm gonna take
Yeah.
a screen print. Yeah.
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 So you have become an Aquarius rising, a little bit more out there, I think, than other places that
Hmm.
you've lived. Your midheaven moves into Sagittarius, so the truth seeker, the philosopher, the
Hmm.
expand, all things expansion, growth, and all that. And your Neptune moves into your 10th house, which is very supportive for
Oh,
that
good.
channeling. So that's
Ooh,
awesome. I love
good.
that. Yeah.
Good.
um, like I had mentioned, you have well. Before I move in there, let's look at what's going on here because there's not as much. So Chiron moves into your second house, as well as your south node, and so what I wonder then is maybe any issues related to finances that have come up there for you. Maybe some scarcity issues, or and it may not have been like that they actually translated it into something real, but more of a fear of I don't have enough or whatnot.
Yeah, I'm happy to share that I went through some significant job changes, some unexpected job loss, some periods of unemployment. So that resonates for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Um, okay. And then you have in your third house communication. Um, you've got Jupiter there. Um, with Jupiter sitting there in your 10th house and then Neptune that and then that Saturn Neptune line that you have. Plus Jupiter sitting in your third house of communication, it just feels like, that the the higher realms, the communication with higher realms was like very significant there. Um,
Okay.
and but then also, maybe finding your own voice too came out a
Yes.
little bit more here too. Standing more confidently in how you speak and how
Yes.
you express yourself.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. And we already talked about the moon. And then moving into your seventh house, your descendant moves into Leo. And so it's like, it's funny because it's like normally in your birth chart, you have Leo as your midheaven. And so I wonder here, it's like, have you been attracting more creative partners, more expressive
Yes.
partners?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. For sure.
Okay. Um, and then also maybe even older partners. I don't know.
I I'm casting my mind back. One or
It's fine.
two.
Okay. Um, okay. And then your seventh house is huge. It
But
covers
maybe that's a good
three
hint.
houses.
But you know what, Susan, that might be a good hint for me for my next romantic partner. Maybe I should be targeting older and not younger.
I, I don't
No,
know.
I'm
I
teasing.
mean,
I'm teasing.
yeah, Saturn rules time. And so it's like sometimes whenever Saturn sits in the seventh house, it can relate to, maybe taking a little bit longer to find a partner, but also potentially having older partners as well, too.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, it can go different ways. Um, you have Ceres there sitting in your seventh house in Virgo. So it's like the having those one-on-one relationships are very important to you, very comforting for you, and
Yes.
related to your birth chart too. That makes sense as well. Um, but then also Mercury sitting there as well is your ability to speak to them maybe a little bit
Hmm.
easier, ability to express yourself a little bit easier, express your emotions too. Um,
Absolutely.
okay, and then we get into your eighth house.
Ooh.
You've got a lot going on there. Okay.
I hope that's a good laugh and not
No,
you
it's
should be
just
worried
it's
laugh.
no, it's just so perfect though for like, the fact that, you had that spiritual awakening there that was
Hmm.
such a shift. Like I
It
think
was.
when I think about spiritual awakenings, I think it comes to, awakening to some of the shadows that you're holding on to and
Hmm.
what else is out there in a sense. And so like having your north node there, it's like that was definitely destined for you to look into or to really dive
Hmm.
into. Um, and then having your sun there, it's like I wonder. There's so the eighth house is more than just the shadow work, which I tend to focus on a lot, just because I think I do focus more on the shadow work. That's just
Yeah.
my realm,
Yeah.
but it can often relate to like other people's money. It can relate to um, debts and inheritance. It could relate to even sex. I think is one of the big things that come up there. But
Yeah.
it's all these different things could be manifested in different ways. I mean, having your son there is, I feel like having an eighth house sun can be a little bit challenging sometimes,
Hmm.
in that maybe your ability to live more vibrantly, more your vitality in a sense, um, is limited by your ability to really see past some of the stuff that's lurking in the shadows, the
Hmm.
stuff that is hidden away from you in a sense. Um, and I think the more that you're able to access that and the more that you're able to work through that, the more vibrantly you're able to shine. Or the more that
Hmm.
you're able to express yourself and stand confidently in who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Thank you. Yeah.
Um, ninth house, which is expansion, growth. You have that Venus there, and so I'm curious about the themes that we had talked about previously with in what you had in New York City with the two different experiences. So when it related to love, of some of those maybe come out in different ways, in the sense that like you were able to learn from it. Like you were able to gain like more wisdom. There is more clarity that came from it when you were
Yes.
in London as opposed to when you were in New York.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
Okay.
And also in different ways. So in one there was a big betrayal in the relationship. So we were dating
Mm.
for a long time, but it turned out he was engaged to someone else the entire time.
Oh
And
my
I found
gosh.
out, yeah, in a really like crazy way, but I had no reason to suspect. There was nothing. And listen, I'm a lady detective. I'm always, always on the lookout. So
Scorpio.
that was a
Yep.
big shock, a big shock and a big learning. And
Yeah.
then also I had I was dating someone for a while and he would like to write me poetry. And at
Mm-hmm.
first I just would laugh because I thought this is so cliche and ridiculous, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also a learning about, leaning into those other types of gestures and expressions that I'm less comfortable with, right?
Okay.
So I do feel sometimes it's felt like hard work, but I would say my romantic relationships here have definitely taught me very different lessons.
Yeah. Yeah. It's growth, I will say.
It's growth. Yeah. Yeah.
Being in that 9,000 and also having Saturn
Whether we
there,
like it or
yes,
not. Yeah.
yes, you're gonna grow from it,
Yeah.
which I mean, hopefully is a good reflection for you too about like how maybe you can show up a little bit more is your authentic self in a sense too. Like having your
Yes.
descendant often relates to it can relate to other people and your partners, but it's also usually just a mirror straight back to you of what maybe you
Hmm.
may be hiding from. Um,
For
and
sure.
so if you have like these partners that are really vibrant, are really, you know, free to be themselves, then that also exists within you too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So taking that and that's what I really love about astrocartography is like the ability to go somewhere else, have these experiences and really let that be like a mirror for what you have within yourself
Yes.
and take that back wherever you go.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I know we're just at time, but I know you also wanted to
It's
look.
it's okay if you need to stop. That's no problem. I don't want you
Okay.
to push through. This has been so generous.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I I can also send you your map later if you're
That would be
interested.
amazing. I would be really
And
interested. Yeah.
yeah, and so I can
Would you
show
mind
you.
sending me my birth chart as well and
Yeah.
I can cool. I'll
Yeah.
print it
Absolutely. Let
out.
me make a note.
I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you for letting me be so chatty.
Yeah, no, no, this was great. I really do appreciate the insights that other people bring, just because, as I mentioned earlier, everything can kind of manifest differently. And so having people's personal experiences, their stories to explain of, okay, this is how it actually played out is helpful too.
Yes.
Um, okay. But yeah, that's all that,
Okay.
we have there. But thank you so much. I
Okay.
really appreciate
Thank
your time
you.
and your
Likewise.
willingness to share.
You got it. All right. Take
All right.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.